expect him to be quite full in the face, and it's all okay. We got down to the tumor and sent to what's called a frozen section. Frozen section is just a piece of tissue that's frozen and sliced up so that a real thin wafer of tissue you can actually see through it on a slide. That's an imperfect way of getting a diagnosis. It's not the final answer, but it gives us a rough idea of what we're dealing with. And we were dealing with something that grows very quickly. Surprise, surprise. And we categorize it as what we call a small blue cell tumor, which puts it as one of about 5 or 6 things, all of which are very fast growing, and all of which are going to require more than just my operation to get rid of.
What's cancerous?
Well, yeah, I mean, the way you mean the word, it's fair to think about it like that. It's not really a very useful word in brain tumors because no brain tumor ever spreads to the rest of the body. They only stay in the brain. And this one, you know, it's going to require other things. And if what you mean when you say somebody has cancer is they have to get chemotherapy, then yeah, that's a fair way of putting it. And certainly it's likely to be something that's, going to be a lot to go through for it, no matter what. But nor is it necessarily incurable. We don't really know yet until we get the final answer. What we did with the rest of the specimen is we send a lot of it over to the lab, and they put it and cure it in a series of chemical solutions, and they put it in paraffin wax, and they slice that. And that's where we get our sort of final diagnosis, our final answer as to what it is. And that's going to take the whole rest of the week at least. So we won't know until Friday or Saturday at the earliest, maybe Friday at the earliest, what this is, for real, for sure. And then after that, we can start to focus on whether what we should do, more than just operate. I made the presumption that I should try to remove everything I possibly could without causing a lot of harm. It's a massive lesion, it's such a big tumor. I think we'll find out. We're going to get an MRI to prove what we've done, but I think we've essentially cored out the entire thing. I had to leave a rim around the outside edge, thin little wafer rim, because it's attached to all those cranial nerves we were talking about. And until I know he needs me to take that out, or else I'm not going to go try to peel off all those nerves from it, because I'll probably damage them trying, and he'll have all those types of troubles we talked about. He may still have some difficulty with swallowing, even just with the manipulation we did do, but I'm hopeful that won't be a permanent problem for him. There was other tumor that was kind of embedded in the tissue right next to the brainstem that we chose to leave alone, mostly just because it was so close to it. If I found out that it was worth taking tremendous risk to try to get the rest of what's there out, I could do that, go back and work another 12 hours, and we might be able to get it all out. But it's about 99% out now. The last 1% always takes is always the part that's stuck to all the critical structures and things like that. But it isn't actually invading the brainstem per se. It invades a lot of cranial nerves, or at least it's squeezed up next to them. It is invading the cerebellum, mostly cut it off there. So I felt pretty good about the resection. Again, it's the type of lesion where no matter how much I take out, we're going to require chemotherapy. And for the most part, the chemotherapy is is going to get rid of what's left. Hello, good morning. Dr. Gardner must be
Wanda, my mother.
Grandma?
Mm-hmm.
Other grandma. So anyway, so this is the lay of the land. We after we finished getting most of the tumor out about an hour ago, we started closing. We put the bone back most of the way we found it. It's held in place with some little tiny titanium straps, which won't set off the airport metal detector. Don't have to come out. And he's closed up with the sutures that dissolve. He's going to go up to the intensive care unit. We're going to keep him intubated just because it's been a very long case. He'll be able to stay asleep per se. As soon as he's awake enough to breathe on his own and have the tube out, it's fine when he comes out. But usually we'll keep him sleeping until we get the MRI scan. It's hard to wake him up, put him right back to sleep again.
Are they going to do that again today?
Yeah, they should do that sometime today. They don't know that yet, so we'll tell them when we get upstairs they've got to do that. So it's not on their work list yet, but they'll probably figure it out since we took a video or they're going to have to do it. The next couple of days are really just going to be spent recovering from this operation. No matter what kind of tumor it is, it's the same process for him anyway. He's sore, he's uncomfortable, he's sick to the stomach, and that's where he's going to be for the next couple of days. I'm pretty optimistic that he's not suffered any permanent harm from the operation, but certainly might have some transient difficulties, some temporary difficulty with swallowing or shrugging the shoulder, or more for all I know, but it seemed to go pretty well. We monitored all the cranial nerves, and they all seemed to work fine at the beginning of the MDK. So electrically, anyway, everything seemed to work okay.
So do you think with the chemotherapy, we could go good?
I hope so. It depends entirely on what it is. We'll be as straightforward with you as we have to be. I mean, I can't make up what's not true. I'm not going to beat you over the head with stuff, but I'll tell you what I know. And right now, what I know is extremely likely to require chemotherapy. It might be that it's the type of tumor that we succeed pretty regularly with that. There are types of tumors where we get 70% of the kids through with malignant brain tumor. One particular type that this could be, we succeed quite a lot. Maybe at his age, his numbers are not quite that good, but they're not too far off that. There are other tumors for which we are lucky to get 5% to make it through, so it's a pretty serious problem. There's no way around it. But just take it one day at a time. Battles to fight. And, we start at the beginning and we work our way through it. We see what happens and what it is. There's a lot of I'm thinking mostly of the common things when I'm talking to you about it, but the laundry list of things that this could include is actually quite long. There's a lot of ones and twos in the bottom of the list. So, if you had 100 of these things, well, 30 would be this, 30 would be that, 30 would be the other, and the other 10 would be, sort of a long list of bizarre stuff that is, prognosis we haven't talked about at all. So, again, for the next couple of days, my advice is just focus on him and how he's feeling and how to get him better from what he's going through rather than what the long term holds. Not because I have any special knowledge it's going to be a miserable conversation when we have to have it. It might be. I don't know that yet. All I know is I got a kid who's just had a tremendously long, difficult operation. I've got to get better from that before I can worry about fighting the next part of the battle. So he's got a drainage tube. I think we talked about this a little bit in the brain and draining the spinal fluid. I think I've got enough tumor out, and I think I got about 90-something% of it out. But we should be able to get by without permanent shunt. So I think he's going to be okay from that standpoint. I'm not 100% positive because where the cavity is, the fullest part's near the bottom where the lining tissue also comes the closest. But we've got our drainage tube in there for right now anyway, and we're going to go ahead and drain that. You'll see it has some bloody fluid in it. I'll be surprised if it's a little bloody. That's okay. And we'll leave that in draining for several days before we do anything because we want it to protect the closure. Inside that closure where we sewed everything back together again, there's water, spinal fluid, just like water anyway. And it tends to want to leak out through the stitches that we put everything back together again. So we like to have a place for it to go out instead. So I don't want to hide from your question in any way. Cancer is a difficult word to use in the brain because you may have a series of things that you think of about cancer that I don't think of because brain tumors are so different from tumors elsewhere like breast cancer, prostate cancer, things like that. This is not a tumor that's ever going to go anywhere else in the body. It is a tumor that is highly likely to require chemotherapy in order to survive. And it's certainly possible it would be a bad tumor that's very difficult to survive from, although we some treatment for everything. Just don't know how well it'll work. I've taken probably about 90% of it out, and 10% is attached to critical things that I can take out, but I lose a lot of function if I do that, or at least potentially lose a lot of function, and I'd like to know that I need to do that before I expose it to it. It'll be 4 or 5 days before I know for sure what it is. During that time, the pathologist are curing the specimen, freezing it, or putting in paraffin, staining with all the antibody stains that have to be figured out. Once we have that answer, I'll know what to do. It might take, what it is, may be highly successful at moving the remaining 5 or 10% or whatever. We're going to get an MRI today to look. For all I know, there's a big lump behind. I just couldn't see, or I didn't think there was too much. It's such a big mass, and it would be difficult to miss a piece of it here or there. It was pretty attached to the cranial nerves that run the face, that run the skull, and things like that. It was attached to all the blood vessels, but mostly the cranial nerves. I could have gotten it off the blood vessels. They weren't too difficult, but nerves that run all those structures are a bit unforgiving for surgical manipulation. So once we see them attached to those things, we mostly try to stay away from it if we can. I don't think I could entirely just because of the way the tumor was arranged. So I'm worried about a shoulder shrugging, I'm worried about a swelling a little bit. But if we've done anything, it'll be to damage the left side of the nerves. Otherwise, if there's a right side of one for each of those two, it probably come along pretty well from that standpoint.
Okay.
So again, when they're all finished up, the resident is just closing right now, and she's got the skin stitches in. We'll take them upstairs, and like I said, we'll let the anesthetic wear off and see what we see. It's been a long anesthetic, so I'm expecting to sort of pop right up and be ready to go. He might be, but he might also be very sleepy. I don't think you'll see a lot of. I mean, you should move both sides pretty equally, but he could have a weakness of his face, or he could have an eye that seems to move in the other direction. Lots of things are possible, but from what I saw, I expect everything to be okay. Long-term neurologic in terms of like the surgical manipulation itself. I think it'll recover from everything. I'm not reasonably well, but we had a pretty good look at everything at the end. We could really see all the structures, and they all looked okay. And electrically, nothing was complaining too much or anything. I'm sorry you're going through this, Mom. It's very painful for mothers to have to deal with this with little ones, or even not so little ones, I'm afraid. But we'll get through it. We'll just take it one step at a time. We've got solutions for mostly. We have things we can offer for virtually anything that we can find out. So there's lots of people here to help, and we'll just start at the beginning and work our way through it. So, peace to you. He's safe right now, okay?
Get some sleep.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doc.
I'm looking for Ann Wiltrakis. Ann? Did I pronounce that right? Close.
Those cranial nerves are the ones they were talking about. If they take it off, it has to have that tracheotomy. If that's what, you probably have to have it the rest of the